there's a vote in the Commons tomorrow for
Yes.
calling for a ceasefire. It's been tabled as an amendment to the King's Speech by the SNP. And there is a lot of stuff. There are stuff and or things going on about that. So, as it's been tabled by the SNP, any Labour frontbencher who votes with the motion is going to lose their position on the front bench. And some estimates are as high as 17 frontbenchers might have to get kicked off for supporting the ceasefire. Between 10 to 17 people are expecting.
That's going to put him in a genuinely difficult position to fill those roles afterwards with other people.
Yep.
The amount of vaguely left-wing people that he's never going to appoint, and the fact that the Labour Party don't have that many MPs, that's going to be a struggle for him. He's going to have to really.
I'm sure he'll find the dregs of the Labour PLP to fill it. But one thing that has really, really angered me is that Labour have framed this as political games by the SNP. They literally tweeted that out saying that this amendment calling for a ceasefire is just political games from the SNP. And I think that is absolutely disgusting to say that. The SNP, I wholeheartedly believe, and I wholeheartedly believe Humza Yousaf is doing it sincerely, that they support a ceasefire. I mean,
he's got family in Gaza, right? Or at least they've escaped now, but they had family in Gaza.
So to say, for Labour to turn around and say to the SNP, whose leader has had family in Gaza, to say that they're playing political football with the lives of Palestinians, calling for a ceasefire, is sickening, absolutely sickening. And each day when I think the Labour Party can't sink any lower, I'm forever surprised, although I shouldn't be surprised anymore, at how low they can go. And I am so angry. I don't want to fucking lose my head right now, but it is such a nasty and disgusting thing to say. And it's them who are turning it into a political game, because the SNP are genuinely calling for something that's really important. And for Labour to turn around and say, well, we can't really just say we oppose a ceasefire without looking bad. They're trying to turn the tables and say, well, the SNP are only doing this for political football. That in itself is political football, I think.
He's whipped to abstain, right? So he's whipped to abstain, which is the most non-committal possible. It's typical Starmer, right? Abstaining on every single thing that you can potentially abstain on, because having an official position is like communist or something. I don't know, right? Having an actual position that you believe in and that you support is something that only people who believe in anything other than winning elections might do. And so, of course, Keir Starmer doesn't support that at all. I mean, Humza Yousaf actually came out literally today after the story broke and said, Keir Starmer is reportedly threatening to sack any Labour frontbench MP who votes for a ceasefire tomorrow. What's a complete lack of moral leadership. The SNP will force a vote on a ceasefire. This is a plea for every MP to do the right thing and vote with their conscience. Which just shows you that even Humza Yousaf, the guy who hid his WhatsApp messages from the COVID inquiry, even he has more of a moral backbone than Keir Starmer does.
Oh, absolutely.
So this is peak Britain, okay? Jumbly Crumbly Concretes says tomorrow MPs will be voting on a ceasefire for Gaza, etc., etc. I will vote for a ceasefire tomorrow, and I will continue to demand the release of hostages, end the siege in Gaza, and an end to the occupation of Palestine. I urge my colleagues to do the same. To which Piers Morgan says, "Is Hamas a terror group?"
I mean, it does say it in the tweet. So,
yeah.
But again, it's infuriating.
That is infuriating on Jeremy's part, though, because why not just say that on fucking TV? Yeah. But still, sickening opportunism from Piers Morgan there.
Yeah, it's Britain in a nutshell. You can even do the right thing to vote for a fucking ceasefire to, the ethnic cleansing and genocide of a peoples, and Piers Morgan will use it as a way of using it as a political football. You might as well kick around the corpses of dead Palestinian children, Piers.
I mean, he basically already is doing on his channel for clicks at this point. I'd like to point out as well, Pledge 4 from Keir Starmer's leadership election: promote peace and human rights, no more illegal wars, introduce a Prevention of Military Intervention Act, and put human rights at the heart of foreign policy, review all UK arms sales, and make us a force for international peace and justice. What a fucking liar. What a wheezy little liar, dude. Still lying.
biggest
Sure.
liar in politics.
Can someone
Okay.
please enlighten Starmer that he's literally lying to his audience? What a piece of shit, dude.
Let's have a look.
So potentially going forward, calling for a ceasefire. If Labour shadow ministers vote for that amendment, will they be sacked?
Well, look, we would expect people to vote for the Labour position. That's why we're putting the Labour position forward. No vote in Parliament.
But your Labour position is to not have a position.
Yeah, the position is to abstain.
Position in itself, though, is meta.
Yeah, exactly.
Labour have transcended basic human thought, and they're actually really so we just don't understand it because we're too fucking stupid. They're in
Yeah,
the,
the new
they're in
Labour-
headsets.
The new
They're
Labour
playing
Triangulation
5D chess.
Committee.
Okay,
Having a position on something is so fucking three-dimensional.
exactly. That's the 20th century politics was about having opinions and positions.
Mhm.
Okay, get with the program, boomers.
Parliament is a free vote unless it is announced as such, and there's usually a very specific set of issues that will be around that. Disciplinary issues are obviously for the Chief Whip, they're not for me to announce on television, but we would expect Labour front benches to support the Labour position, which we've clearly put forward.
So your position is to not have a position on people not having a position on your not position.
He's just trying to increase the word count on his answer.
Amazing.
A simple,
Honestly.
simple yes would suffice.
Because that's obviously the answer. You could just give the answer. We're not fucking dumb. Well, actually, sorry, I'm forgetting this is the British people who are watching this. Some of the British people are very stupid and might fall for this, I guess.
You know, when there's been like parodies of politicians when they do this sort of answer, but
Yeah.
it's so funny. It's like I feel like I'm watching a parody now.
It is,
Yeah,
yeah,
also-
it's ridiculous. Isn't it?
And also from Noodleroo in chat, if the positionless Labour position clearly goes against the MP's positions and the supporters' positions, how can they say it's their position? True.
Very true. Very true. Where are we?
Forward, and Keir has given that speech on, and the amendment will reflect, as well as,
What
to be
happens
fair,
if they vote for the SNP amendment?
well, we would not expect any front bencher to vote for a different political party's amendment to the King's
See, it doesn't even
speech. We
matter.
would
This
expect
is
them to back
this is infuriating. I'm sorry. I just have to actually let off a little bit of steam here. It's just infuriating. It's absolutely infuriating to me that it doesn't matter what the issue is. It doesn't matter how correct the cause, unless it's banning smoking for people born after a certain year, which apparently that's fine for Labour to vote for another party's amendment on, right? But when it's something that actually matters, like whether or not there is a continued bombardment of the Gaza Strip, the ongoing ethnic cleansing of Palestinians from Gaza, suddenly it's like, well, actually, we can't allow people to vote for another person's amendment from another party. That's the yellow party. They're the bad people, right? How dare with the red team, and you're making us vote with the yellow team? How dare you make us do the team sports? Bad. That's the bad team. We're the good team. It's an infuriating infantilization of the most important geopolitical topic that we've had in this country since Syria, and the fact that they are just essentially, this is playing politics, right? Calling the ceasefire amendment is not playing politics like they're accusing, but coming back and saying, well, actually, no, we can't vote for this because it's the yellow amendment, that is playing politics. I will actually call that out for playing politics rather than engaging in political debate and discussion. Playing politics is very specifically undermining the political process through the lens of political parties, through party politics. That's what they're doing here, and it's disgraceful.
And grown-up politics, I thought, is supposed to be about working with anyone to try and get meaningful solutions passed. This isn't grown up, is it? What's grown up about? Oh, you're not on my team. I can't work with you. That's essentially what it is.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
And specifically as well, because not that the SNP are particularly left-wing, but they're seen as they're to their left. That makes it more unacceptable. Well, if the Tories were amending something, the Labour would find it far more acceptable.
Adults back in the room, though. Adults back in the room.
Adults
That's what
back
this
in
looks
the
like.
fucking room. Thank God for the adults back in the room.
And as I said yesterday, the journalist class can go back to grilling, and they can grill on the ashes, the smouldering ashes of the country they helped destroy.
Yep.
back the Labour position. I
So
believe
they'd
the
be
majority
sacked.
of people would.
They'd be
Well,
sacked.
it's not for my call to make, but you're right to say there is an expectation of collective responsibility from any political party.
I don't understand why he
Okay.
doesn't just say yes, because their position is not to call for a ceasefire. That's publicly known.
Yeah.
So if he says yes, they will be sacked because it's collective punishment. Why is he being so coy about it? It's not like people don't know your position on it. It's like the wheezy politician's answer.
Well, Reynolds is always like that.
Principles, it's always just say, yeah, they will get sacked for it. I don't know what, like, how stupid do you think people are? People know that Labour's position on it.
Well, Labour's position is collective responsibility for their own MPs with regards to votes in the Commons and collective punishment for the citizens of the Gaza Strip.
Yeah, there it is. Ding, ding, ding.
But within international law, only within international law.
Yeah,
No, but they can break the law in specific and limited
ways.
That's fine.
but if it hits the international law.
Yeah, but only that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about the war in the Middle East. Labour's putting forward an amendment on Gaza to vote for. What exactly is it?
Well, the amendment that we will put forward as part of the King's speech will reflect the very detailed position that Keir Starmer put out in his Chatham House speech, which is that we believe a humanitarian pause is essential to get aid into people.
Very
Bang, and as long as it's a humanitarian pause.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to do a humanitarian pause for my own sanity. But he says, look, the very kind of detailed position. What detailed position? Nobody knows what a humanitarian pause fucking means, right? The fact that people keep saying the phrase humanitarian pause, that means, does it mean that there's like day-long cessations of hostilities and they start bombing them again? Is it 4 hours to clear up the north of Gaza so they can annex territory and ethnically cleanse people? Nobody, it's a completely nebulous phrase. There was an absolute lack of detail in the Chatham House speech. I know, I watched it on stream. We listened to the questions. He didn't answer any questions because he hasn't got a fucking position. As we've already found out, because their position is to not have a position.
Well, indeed. Well, no, a humanitarian pause is clearly like it's a furry thing, isn't it? It's humans with paws.
When a politician says, let me be clear, followed by something that is definitely not clear.
Yeah. If it takes you 30 seconds to answer
all do it as well.
It's probably not very clear.
Fucking annoying.
People who need it, there's clearly a humanitarian catastrophe taking place. But the reason that is a better way to address that catastrophe is it doesn't freeze the conflict, it doesn't ignore the plight of hostages, it doesn't ignore the horrible events of October 7th, and it doesn't take away Israel.
I'm pretending this is about October the 7th. It isn't. It clearly isn't. They're land grabbing, they're ethnically cleansing, and they want to steal that territory.
What's he suggesting, that if you call for a ceasefire, you are ignoring October 7th? It's like, it's not ignoring October 7th for calling for a humanitarian pause. Well, why does a ceasefire means it ignores it then?
Because a ceasefire is the naughty word. It's the
ceasefire
bad C word.
Hamas
ceasefire,
word.
Yeah, ceasefire to them means Hamas get away with it, right? That's what their position is that if you call for a ceasefire, it's like Hamas getting away with it. And I can understand why they might hold that position, but when you actually look at the real, actual material conditions that we've come to, where okay, they're not going to get rid of Hamas, though, right? The Israeli Foreign Office have already admitted they're not going to be able to get rid of Hamas. Because did America succeed at getting rid of the Viet Cong for much the same reason as Israel giving up on eliminating Hamas? They've both given up. They of course, they would have given up. But what the important thing is that by there always being the threat of Hamas, it's further justification for further annexation. And because that is, of course, the actual and real end goal that they are looking for here. Because as we've mentioned many times, there will always be another militant group propping up out of the rubble that will inevitably get radicalized by the actions of the state of Israel.
Yeah. You think the media would have learned from the war on terror, but they don't.
No.
Israel's right to defend itself.
What's the difference then between a humanitarian pause?
I think that's a really
ceasefire?
important question. A humanitarian pause literally stops the violence to get the quantity of aid in that is necessary. I think everybody wants to see that.
Okay, that sounds like a ceasefire.
It sounds like a ceasefire, but on a temporary basis.
The thing is, what they'll say is the response, if there was a real journalist here, which Sophie Ridge is a bare facsimile of one, right? The response would be, oh, okay, and so once that pause is finished, the bombing starts again, right? And the kids start dying with full stomachs instead of empty stomachs. Is that what's going to happen? That's not a ceasefire then.
Yeah.
Oh, at least they could die hungry. I guess that's humanitarian, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. No need to bring in food if they're not alive. Modern problems, modern solutions. Let's go.
A ceasefire would freeze the conflict as it is.
So it's about timing, is that right? Like
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I think humanitarian
What
pause
does that
have to be
mean?
long enough
Like, it
to get the
freezes
quantity of
the
aid in that
conflict
is
as it is.
necessary.
Well,
Like, what? It's...
let's look at a game of chess. It's
Yeah,
like
it's like, no, we
they're
need
stopping the
to-
game of chess, and then they can go back in and carry on afterwards.
Yeah, but
The
it's
peace
so
is the same.
weird. Like, actually, yeah, I would love for this conflict to be frozen forever. There's less fighting and less people dying. Like, well, that in itself, it's just waffling on, but that's nothing logical.
I'd quite like Benjamin Netanyahu to be frozen forever.
Yeah, that,
In Minecraft, of course.
although that's
Of
too
course.
kind.
A ceasefire, to me, implies you freeze the conflict as is, the Hamas threat is still there to
I'll be
Israel,
honest,
the hostages are still there.
It sounds, if you're saying it's not about time frame, sorry, forgive me, it sounds like that's exactly the same.
Forgive me.
Yeah, exactly. Forgive me. You're a fucking journalist.
Yeah, no.
That's what you're
Yeah, but
supposed to
You
do.
might
Forgive
not
me.
get
I
invited
know.
to the party
I know-
later.
I know you're not used to asking to have
Mhm.
journalists asking you difficult questions and follow-ups on the bullshit you've just said. Apologies. I know we're all part of the same game, and this is awkward for you. And I hope I don't lose access because of this. But can you just explain the bollocks you've just talked?
Her behavior is so telling. It's
Yeah.
yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's like, oh, please invite me to the party later, please. I
Yeah,
want to ask you something again.
Give me the
Fuck
access.
off. All of you, fuck off.
I apologise for that foul language from that bastard. It's outrageous.
Well, I really don't believe it is. I think that is why there is so much conversation around.
So what specifically is different? Is it the area? Is it like a local area? And if you have humanitarian pause?
it's about-
Is it the length of time? What is it?
Humanitarian pause allows the quantity of aid to get in that is necessary.
That doesn't mean anything, does it?
Well, no, I don't believe it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. This is what this shouldn't be out of the ordinary. This is the
I know
basic
this
job
should
of
be
a
the normal line
journalist.
of questioning.
Yeah, the thing you just said doesn't make any sense. That's bollocks.
Psychic
It should be the answer to so many politicians' answers.
Yeah,
I think
when you respond though, you have to respond. You have to respond and say, okay, at the end, how long will that pause last for? And at the end of it, will the bombing continue? Right? Because that's the salient point: is will there be any more bombing afterwards? In a ceasefire situation, there won't be more bombing, and a humanitarian pause, there will be. Right? That's the differentiation.
Yeah, I mean but all this seems like, if we try and read between the lines, it just seems like, well, this is a revenge mission then, because if we call for a ceasefire now, the conflict freezes, if I borrow his term, which for me, if the indefinitely freezes, that's a good thing. All I care about is the citizens, whether you're Israeli or whether you're Palestinian, but obviously mostly Palestinians, so that's the most effective, right? But for them, they're like, we want to freeze it, get in a bit of humanitarian aid, then we can continue, because the goal is to take Hamas out, regardless of the consequences. So tell me, this isn't defending yourself. This is just a revenge mission now. You have a chance to completely stop the conflict, freeze it forever, but you don't want to do that. You want to continue until Hamas is eradicated. Now, Jonathan, what you really, really miss from that is Israel doesn't want to eradicate their enemy. If Hamas goes, they will likely want to have another enemy to justify their existence. But that just sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, but does that not just sound like a revenge thing?
Yeah, because it is. Yeah.
It does.
I mean, Gaza gets aid every day,
but
all
it's
the
clearly
time.
not getting to
No,
people on the
but-
scale that it's needed.
No, but
it's a
Gaza
cessation
always
of
has
violence
aid coming into it.
around.
Right, but it's nowhere near enough. There was I saw someone there was an analysis thread on Twitter about the IDF's claims of the aid that it's been giving and stuff. And one of them was that one of the hospitals, I think it was the Al Shara or Al Shifa hospital or whatever it's called, and they said that they dropped off X number of ounces of fuel or whatever the fuck it was. And they worked it out, and that was enough fuel to power the hospital at low emergency levels for 25 minutes. And the IDF were boasting about this, like this was a humanitarian thing. This is the only fuel they'd received in days.
Well, they're boasting about it in English, though, so I'm sure the Palestinians were well aware of it.
Yeah, 25 minutes. Well, I mean, those kids are going to die then, aren't they?
Yeah.
And the world just watches. It's fucking depressing. But, you know, I'm being asked to vote for cunts like this. Nah, it's not happening.
Not happening.
Correct.
But
so I don't understand
well, a
what
ceasefire,
that means in practice.
is a freezing of the conflict. The hostages aren't addressed. The terrorist threat to Israel is not removed.
So how do
How is that different from a fucking humanitarian pause? A
Also-
humanitarian pause is going to bring the fucking hostages back, is it?
Yeah, but the point of a ceasefire, right, is to bring about a peace settlement. So then in that negotiation, you then release the hostages. Like,
Yeah.
does he think that a ceasefire means pressing pause on the TV and everyone just freezes? Like, is he taking the term literally? I think he actually means it literally. Like, ceasefire and everyone's just stuck in time.
Yeah.
You fucking idiot. Like, a ceasefire means stop the violence, then we can try and create a peace settlement in which the hostages are released.
On both sides.
No,
On
if you get a
both sides.
ceasefire, no, if you get a ceasefire, then they get to keep the hostages forever.
The little trophy.
That's how it works, yeah. It's the spoils of war. That's literally how it always works. That's definitely a really sensible, grown-up approach. Whereas if you just do the useless sophistry of calling it a humanitarian pause, that makes that problem go away, apparently.
But also, Israel doesn't care about the hostages.
They don't. No,
No.
they've killed loads of hostages. And on top of that, as Solly points out in Twitch chat, they're literally protesting for hostage releases. The families are protesting Netanyahu, and he's blowing them off. He doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, he doesn't give a fuck.
This is what I always odd to me. Like, you know, they had the pro-Palestine march in London the other day. You think, what are you protesting? What do you want exactly? The British government are already firmly behind you. You don't need to be here. This is pointless. Oh no, it's not. You're just doing propaganda. Cool.
Would you address the conflict and the hostages in a humanitarian pause?
Well, I believe in the humanitarian pause, you get the aid in. It's not going to
But it doesn't have anything to do
remove
with
Israel's
hostages, does
ability
it? What
to
does it
go
have to do
in
with
and try and
hostages?
get those hostages. Well, I believe that if you...
Come on, you're dancing on a head.
No, I don't think there is. I think this is why, let's be clear, humanitarian pause is the only viable vehicle on an international level at the minute that is being...
Sounds like it's just a
put
different
What is
word.
it?
Well,
It is. It is literally just. It's semantics. It's bollocks.
Well, the thing is, I wish it was semantics, but it's not, because what he's describing as a humanitarian pause may not sound very different to a ceasefire because he's trying to dress it up. But the policy of a humanitarian, stop calling it a humanitarian pause, it's ridiculous. A pause literally means here's 4 hours while we put in some sort of aid, and then we'll continue to kill children.
I mean,
So
the
it's not-
pauses are currently being used, right? Because there are 4-hour pauses, as you mentioned, Curtis. The pauses aren't being used to get humanitarian aid in. They're being used so that Palestinians in north of the exclusion zone can evacuate to below the exclusion zone.
Yeah, it's
That's why they're
ethnic
doing
cleansing,
it. It's ethnic cleansing. They're trying to dress up the second Nakba as humanitarian.
Yeah, no, it's woke ethnic cleansing.
which is kind of really impressive propaganda. I mean, it's not working for a lot of people, but it's like very arrogant.
Well, the thing is, it doesn't need to work for a lot of people because they have the backing of those governments.
Yes.
They don't actually need to win over that many people for their position to hold.
We don't need to propagandize our government because they just don't care anyway.
Yeah. There's literally nothing that they could do that the US government wouldn't support.
Yeah.
I made the incendiary, quite literally, comment that if they literally set up concentration camps with ovens, I don't think the US government would stop supporting them.
And if you had a ceasefire, you'd have an extended, a very long time. Then the UN can go in and help the people without the fear of like, oh my God, in 4 hours' time, the bombing is going to continue.
Yeah.
If there was a genuine ceasefire, you literally have the time now to really try and look after the Palestinians.
Yeah.
people will have their own interpretation of that, but, you know, I think the people who are calling for a ceasefire believe that the terrorist threat will not be removed as a part of that, and I believe a humanitarian...
What?
Well, yeah, because that's I mean, what he's saying is, and this is the key distinction here, that he's half letting on now, at the very least we finally get some kind of distinction here, is that when he says humanitarian pause, he means that their fighting will continue immediately after the pause ends, whatever. There was a delineated time that the pause happens for, and then they start the fighting again so that Israel can pretend that they can wipe out Hamas when that's not happening.
Yeah.
Whereas a ceasefire means that Hamas definitely do stay around because they will be one of the negotiating partners in the ceasefire agreement. But of course, you know, this idea that somehow they'll be able to use their military might to get rid of Hamas, it's nonsense. But what it does do is continue the conflict for as long as possible, i.e. indefinitely, so that they can continue ethnic cleansing under the guise of, oh, they're still not rooted out Hamas yet. There's still a Hamas agent under the floorboards somewhere, so we're going to have to continue the ethnic cleansing until they've gone. And then suddenly Gaza will be no more, and they'll be like, whoops, well, turns out we looked through all of the tunnels, and there are still some Hamas people left in Qatar, so now that's it, it's ours now. That's what that means, that's what it is, whereas a ceasefire means that Hamas will eventually will have to stay around for that ceasefire negotiation. That's why they want to do it.
This pause as well isn't a demand our governments are making. This pause is just policy from Israel, and it's almost like dressing up as, well, we're demanding a pause, but we're standing up. We're standing up for the right thing. No, you've just copied the policy of what Israel's already doing. A ceasefire is demanding something from Israel. That's standing up to Israel, but just reiterating existing policy, which is a humanitarian pause. They're trying to bullshit us into thinking that, no, they are calling for something. You're not calling for something when it already exists. This pause, is, as you just perfectly addressed, is a smart strategy to continue the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians. It's not even like a conciliatory, moderate position from, you've got ceasefire, no ceasefire, and then the pause is in the middle. No, the pause is basically exactly the same as genocide, but it's just a smarter way of doing it.
Yeah.
It's not a compromise. That's
no, exactly. It gives it a thin veneer of respectability to genocide.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah.
Pause is about getting the aid in that is necessary, whilst recognising no country could afford for that threat to remain on its border.
Well, that was fucking depressing. I'm never voting for these cunts ever.
Never again. Never again.
Never.
Not happening.
Unbelievable.
Hey there, if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and leave a comment. That helps the video out in the algorithm. If you subscribe and ring the bell, it'll let you know when I go live. I stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. You can also follow all of my socials down in the description. And if you want to support me in a more financial manner, there's a join button for memberships. It's just 99p to be a member on YouTube, as well as a Patreon, and there's some merch there as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.